Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis, January 19th, the day after the Martin Luther King holiday here in the United States. Before Brian and I jump into taking a look at a hot spot in the market, and we definitely have a hot spot in the market today with some market moving news. First, quick introduction. I am Todd Rich with Nadex. With me is Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. And before Brian and I run through our session, I need to share that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, and that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. Lastly, this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your educational purposes. So if you haven't caught it yet, the story today, which we'll see moving the markets. We got some indication last week from the U.S. Federal Reserve, from Powell, that the U.S. is not concerned about weakening the U.S. dollar, and we saw the dollar get stronger and stronger and stronger. Lo and behold, Yellen announced yesterday she put out her prepared remarks, which she is going to give in exactly 1 hour, but it's going to be all about the Fed stepping in with some stimulus, and the dollar has turned weak. So exactly what the Fed said they weren't particularly concerned about is exactly what's happening. We're seeing a little bit of an emotional move, and that's having a ripple effect in other markets as well. Here, Brian, you want to go ahead and give us the full little rundown?
Yeah, so a couple things. Again, last night, what we saw was, I'll just start off here at a high level here. You can see that the euro dollar, pound dollar, pretty much anything dollar based in the second position is obviously green right now. Starting at about 5-6 o'clock yesterday afternoon, what happened was Yellen was able, she has prepared remarks in her testimony that she's giving today. The reason why she's testifying is for her approval, since she has been I guess as the Treasury Secretary, she's been nominated, but she still needs to be approved by Congress. So she has prepared remarks. The prepared remarks, not necessarily the best. She talked about how, economists don't always agree, but I think there's a consensus now that we need further action without risk. We're going to be in a more poor recession and long-term scarring of the economy. Not necessarily the best. She's known for this kind of policy in the past and not necessarily surprised of it. That's why we've seen extreme dollar weakness thus far in the last really 12 hours. 12 to like, I'd say 15 hours. The market is obviously going to respond to that one. What's going to be the most interesting is to see, again, remember, this is not just one-way testimony. She has a prepared speech, and that's what the Wall Street Journal got last night, and that's why we saw the reaction. It's the questions that she's going to be asked today that are going to become the kind of crazy market-moving advice this morning. And again, what I mean by that, here's the response. If you guys are looking at, this is a gold chart for 1 hour. You can see since the time yesterday, and actually, let me make sure I'm correct here. There's our 9. Really since, let's see, right in here. I'll get a little. I forgot that the cursor is here. Let me make a quick mark. There we go. You guys can all see that yellow moving around. Here is where the U.S. dollar started to kind of collapse yesterday and drop to the downside. So you're seeing that gold is not having the same reaction. There's a couple different reasons for that. So this is kind of a U.S. policy-based decision. Remember, Janet Yellen, as a Treasury Secretary, will not be controlling the Fed. It'll be kind of the U.S. government's response to it. Things like stimulus, she'll be dealing with more that side buybacks. So again, the gold market is not reacting for two reasons. One, she's talking about we're going to go into a deep recession, all these major problems. Not necessarily we were definitely on a boom cycle before COVID happened. But again, it is going to be a dollar weakening kind of speech today. So, there's a couple different areas that, I think we can kind of point out here. Looking at the euro dollar, because that tends to be the easiest. It's had the most strength, even versus the euro pound. It's been a little bit stronger today. There's two different areas. Again, we took a rollover off an area last week that we mentioned, the 2060 level. So again, it drove in, really opened up the week here kind of low in that level and drove higher. Right now, I would say the 2165 is a potential reversal area, as well as 2209. They're both levels where we've had basing. Now, the one concern here is this level of basing that you guys can see. It's spent a lot of time in here, and it's poked and prodded, and it's a 4-hour level. And if I bring it up to the 4-hour, you guys can see, you can definitely see the basing. You can see where the square is, right? You guys can see that this level right here, the indicator is telling us, hey, listen, we've had a lot of indecision and a very, very strong move off. So Definitely some buyers there, but is at the cleanest level? Not so much. I think up here in the 22 would be a little bit better. The real question is can we trust a 1 hour level? Will a 1 hour level hold something
Right.
that Yellen says on that kind of spectrum? And again, nobody knows what she's going to say. She doesn't know the questions that she's going to be asked. All we know is what her policy looked like in the past, and it was very dollar weakening. And again, this is all the information that we thought we were going to get from Powell last week. The Fed actually being the one that stepped up that says we're going to support the support the economy. We're going to again all these business positive things. So it's interesting coming from this side. It doesn't traditionally come from this side, but I think again, people are looking for a different trajectory. So that's I think why Yellen is saying it.
All right, so let me just bring this one up on the Nadex platform, and I think binary options probably is a safe way, or not that anything safe, the safer way versus some of the other products. I mean, let's limited risk, limited reward. These are the dailies, and we can actually take. I mean, these expire at 17 hours. So taking a look at what could you potentially do here? And by the way, I want to back this up for a second. You can see as we look, and this is a 30-minute chart. I mean, you can see how the dollar. I mean, how strong this dollar got. I mean, it was a fairly significant move. And here we are right now. Yellen coming in saying that the Fed's going to probably be buying assets. We're seeing that right now. Here's that level that Brian was talking about, around that 2165-ish, where we might see some sellers step in. But if it goes through that, be looking for all the way up here to 122. And there are plenty of binary options to try to play that, where there could be some opportunity. Something that's interesting to do if you think the dollar is going to continue to turn weak throughout the day, particularly once Yellen speaks in about an hour. We are also seeing it impact equity markets. If the Fed's going to start buying assets, we're seeing strength across the board on U.S. indices. Everything looking a little higher this morning. I want to remind everyone, today we are doing the New Year, New You, Better Trader educational event. It's a free full day long event. We're going to be starting in 2 hours. If you haven't registered, you can do so over on the Nadex website. You go to the learning section, webinars, and you'll see it's there. We will be recording all of those sessions, but you should register because there's going to be some potential benefits to folks who register. In fact, I'm going to chat that link out here in a second. Brian, is there any? I don't want to go too long today because I know we got a lot of preparation for that.
Yeah,
is there anything else you wanted to share briefly?
Yeah, just in regards to something you mentioned just real quick. So, you mentioned that the equities had moved. Yeah, we saw quite a large reaction in the equities from yesterday. Today, we've had a little bit more leveling off. And again, her mentioning, Yellen mentioning comments about that is great. Again, typically whenever there's any form of stimulus, people are getting money. That tends to be good for the overall kind of, the stock market. Problem is, she's not mentioning it as far as this is what people need because we're already. She's talking about a future recession and how long that recession is going to be, which now that it's setting in, it's kind of like, hey, money is great. It goes up. And now it's like, wait, we're going to be in a recession. It's going to be long. It's going to be painful. That could be a big rollover for the indices today. So as great as it all sounds, that weakening dollar, we could also see a collapse in both. Here's the NQ. The S&P is up in a similar kind of like cliffhanging, as well as the Dow is kind of sitting there. And again, gold has absolutely no reaction. The oil reaction is this. Again, a little bit of a pop this morning, but for the most part sideways. And there's one last thing. There was another COVID variant found in Germany, which is different, which is also important to kind of factor in to a global recovery, as well as the IEA, can't say that too fast, has lowered global demand. Now, if you remember last week, we heard OPEC talking about how there was a strong recovery happening. And I mentioned, is OPEC saying this to help themselves? Well, the IEA is now lowered global forecast demand by 600,000 barrels in Q1 and 300,000 per day in 2021 as a whole. So global demand, even though there's a vaccine rollout, is not looking good and countries are locking down. So there's a lot going on this week, a whole lot. And again, when gold and oil are not really moving on the mention that we're going to have a weaker dollar, there's more to the story than, we're hearing thus far. So just keep your eyes open today, again, particularly at 10.
Yep, heads up, eyes open, manage risk. All right,
Yeah.
with that, if you've got any questions for Nadex, email us please at customerservice@nadex.com. You can access Brian through email as well, support@keeptradingsimple.com. I'll also ask, I like to mention it, if you can go to that Trustpilot link, trustpilot.com/review/nadex.com, give us a review. We'd love to get your feedback. With that, I want to let everyone get going, get ready for the day. Yellen speaks in 50 minutes. U.S. equities open in 20 minutes. Brian and I'll be back doing this tomorrow morning. And again, remember, try to join us today. Register for the New Year, New You, Better Trader event. Starts at 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. You can register on the Nadex website. Thanks, everyone. Good luck in the markets.